Good morning, artists. Hey, today we're going to talk about tempera paint and using the Tempera Paint Center. So you guys know you use a egg crate for your palette. You get the 3 primary colors and then black and white. You do all your color mixing on your paper. You're going to need a cup of water and a tempera paintbrush. Those are the bristle, stiff ones that are long over where the tempera paint is. The first step is to decide what size paper you want, and then you need to draw very quickly what you want to paint. I don't want you guys just getting a piece of paper and painting without having any idea of what you're painting. Let's see, I'm going to do a lion. So you're going to draw your design out real fast. Well, not fast, take your time. I'm doing it rather quickly because I didn't plan it ahead of time. But have your image on your paper so you know what you are painting. It could be a landscape, it could be a car, it could be a building. I don't care what you guys paint, but if you have a main image, like the lion, fill the page. Think about composition. Think about making your picture interesting. Then also tell the story. Where does my lion live? I don't just want to have a lion on a paper. So maybe he's in the savannah and there's a horizon line back here and the sun is over here. So remember, you're painting, you want it to tell a story. Even if you're doing a landscape picture, fill it in with detail. Is there a pond in your landscape, a road? And then just for fun, I like to put some patterns back here. Maybe there's a flower right here. Just fill that picture with some patterns, designs. All right, now I'm ready to go. I have an outline. I know what I'm painting. And now when we get started, I have a lot of students that they start by doing detail first. Don't do that. Remember, tempera paint is opaque, so you can paint on top of another color, all right? So start with the background first. Always start in the background. I think my sky will be blue, but I don't want to just paint this straight cyan from the container. That's boring if my sky was this color. Plus, it's really dark. So as you work, I like to keep my paintbrush pretty moist. As I work, I'm going to use my paintbrush to make a nice straight edge right along the lines of my sun. But again, if I get a little blue in that shape that the sunbeam is going to be in, it's okay because I will paint over that. But as I work, I'm pulling my paintbrush and I'm very carefully going right along the edges of the shapes I drew. I have students all the time just paint right to it, like kind of like this, and they leave this like white halo around their object. The sky doesn't do that. Paint right to the edge. This is why we paint the background first, guys, so that you can paint over anything that might go into your object. As you paint, move the paint around. I do not want to see big globs of paint like this. I don't know if you can see that on the video. Move the paint around. Okay, now, like I said, just doing one straight value of the cyan straight from the bottle like this, boring. So either add some magenta to that or white. I love adding the white to lighten my sky. Because if I look outside, the sky is not that blue. It's not that dark. So I am just going to put some white right on top of my blue. Remember, we do our color mixing right on the paper. And then again, I'm using my brush stroke to be going in the same direction, pulling my paintbrush, not pushing it, pulling the paintbrush, working slowly and making a nice straight, what we call a hard edge along the other shapes that I've drawn in my picture. So I'm working from the background to the foreground. Large shapes first, things that are in the back first, then work your way forward. So I might do maybe the sun next because it's behind or on top of my sky. Except then I'd be working wet on wet, so maybe not a good choice. I think maybe I'll move down here now and do some ground behind my lion. And hey, I might need green for that. I have blue on my paintbrush now, so I don't even need to rinse my paintbrush. This is the great thing about tempera paint. Mix on your paper. So I add a little bit of yellow. Now I should get this beautiful yellow-green, and I did. I love that color. So again, I'm going slow, going right around the flower I drew. I'm going all the way to the edge of the paper. It doesn't matter if I get a little paint on the table, I can clean it. That's another thing I see students do all the time is they don't paint all the way to the edge of their paper. So then they have this kind of like white halo around the edge. Not good. We want to take our time with our paintings, artists. Fill in the detail. Make it look neat and like you really took your time. I see too many paintings that look rushed, and that's not what we're going for. We want to have a nice work of art that people are interested in looking at and that we can see our design. A lot of times students will rush so fast that their picture they drew, by the time they're done painting, you can't really tell what you drew because the paint just covered everything up and all the details are lost. So pay attention to those details, but do the details last. Also, here's another thing that makes your artwork interesting. Notice how my green has value changes. There's some light yellow green, there's some darker blue green. This is going to make your artwork more interesting. You could also add texture on top of this after it dries. So you could come back in with dry brush and do some, maybe I want to put some grass or other things in here that might look like texture, weeds. So I could do that with my paintbrush, or you could use a sponge, you could use a Q-tip, you could use bubble wrap and put some patterns on here. But that looks more interesting. All right, so I want you guys to really take your time with your painting. Background first, work your way to those small details last. When you get to small details like this, I'm probably not going to use this paintbrush. I will probably get one of the blue paintbrushes from the Watercolor Paint Center. Those blue ones that come to a nice point, you can use those for acrylic, tempera, and watercolor paint. So I would probably use one of those. All right, I hope that helps, artists. Get creative and enjoy the Tempera Paint Center. Okay, we didn't talk about cleanup. So when you do cleanup, please make sure you rinse those paintbrushes really well. Let them go for a swim in the cup of water. Can you see my cup of water? Not really well, but let it touch the bottom of that cup, let it go for a swim, and then wipe it on the edge. Don't bang it. Wipe it on the edge. I always like to have a wet rag or some kind of rag at my table that I can then dry my paintbrush and clean it. Make sure it's cleaned all the way up on that metal part. You don't want the danger zone to be dirty. Okay, then you're going to take your paint palette, you're going to put it back over here at the paint center on the bench. Paintbrush back in the bucket, bristles up. Nobody wants to have a bad hairdo, not even a paintbrush. And then dump your dirty water over at the Watercolor Paint Center in the dirty water bucket. And please place your cup upside down so it can dry out. All right, see you later, artists.